My name is Marc-Andre Pelletier. I'm the president and CEO of Bonterra Resources. Bonterra is a Canadian gold exploration company with a large portfolio of exploration and mining assets. We're located in Canada, in Quebec, north of Quebec particularly, in the Abitibi Greenstone Belt, with over 3 million ounces of resources, all categories. That okay? Or?
That's perfect. Nice introduction, and welcome to the show. We've not met or spoken before. I think we were talking with Pascal. We've spoken to him a few times, hearing how the project was advancing. But you are the new CEO. So how long have you been on board now?
I started last January 17, so getting close to 3 months now on the big seat.
Right, yeah. So tell us a little bit about you, because I know the Wesdome connection. But what were you doing there?
At the Wesdome, I was the COO, so I was a little bit on the back scene. My job was basically breaking rocks and producing gold. In the last 5 years, the strategy of Wesdome was quite simple. It's to increase the production from the Eagle mine, and in order to grow organically, and restart the production at the Kena mine. So which we've done pretty good. When I started 5 years ago, Eagle mine produced about 55,000 ounces. And when I left last year, it was about over 100,000 ounces. So all the cash flow generated from Eagle was invested in the Kena restart, developing the project from advanced exploration to development to production restart. And we've done all that in 5 years. So I think Wesdome has been a pretty good story. And what I see in Bonterra is I think we can repeat that story as well.
Well, tell me what are the direct parallels for you between what you were doing at Wesdome and what you believe you can do here at Bonterra?
When you look at my background, Matthew, I have either reopened old closed mine or started new projects. And I've done that through exploration success, execution, and optimization of the production. And that's kind of what I like to do, take a project and make it better, and moving toward production and efficiencies, mine efficiencies. So that's what I like to do. And I was able to facilitate the opening of 4 underground and 1 open pit mine in the last 10 years. So what I see in Bonterra, we have the projects, we have the deposits, we have the infrastructures. So we have all the ingredients, to get our project to the next stage.
So why did you come on? Because you were a COO there, like I say, behind the scenes as it were, restarting and getting mines into production, getting 4 mines into production in that time is great. But why did you feel you needed to step up into a CEO role?
Good question, Matthew. After 5 years at Wesdome, I basically achieved, checked all the boxes I wanted to check, which was the reopening of the Kena mine and the increase of the production at Eagle over 100,000 ounces. So I basically did what I wanted to do. When Caesar and the board of Bonterra contacted me, to be honest, I was not looking for work. However, I think Bonterra offered me a great opportunity to become a CEO, which is more a natural progression for me. I didn't have to move my family. The Bonterra's head office is in Val-d'Or. I live in Rouyn-Noranda, which is an hour and a half away. So great opportunity for me to get into the next role. But honestly, outstanding opportunities with the portfolio of Bonterra. Bonterra owns the only permitted mill in the Urban Barry camp. We have the mill. We have other infrastructures. We have over 3 million ounces that, match perfectly with with the kind of asset I can bring to the next stage.
So what did they bring you in to try and solve? Because I mean, we've interviewed the company a few times. I mean, things seem to be heading the right way. I mean, or there problems that we're not aware of that you've been brought in to try and fix or improve? I mean, how was it described to you in terms of the challenge ahead?
What I like the most is the vision we share with the board of directors. The board really wants to move the company to the next stage, which is production restart. And really, that's what I like to do. The challenges we have is how do we take our resource and bring it to the next stage of development. And one thing I noticed is our projects are not all at the same stage of development. The Gladiator deposit, which contains over 1.4 million ounces, is a much early stage of exploration. We need more diamond drilling, more exploration work. And for that purpose, we do need an exploration ramp underground. The deposit is under a lake, which brings its own challenges. We can drill over the lake from barges during the summer, and we can only drill from the shore during the winter. So in order to mitigate those limitations, we are looking to do an exploration ramp underground. At the Barry deposit, where we have over 1.3 million ounces, we already have the mining lease there. So we have mining rights for both open pit and underground mine there. We have measured indicated resources as well. So that's our asset where we see we could bring into production in very short term. And that's where we're working now. I mean, we have initiated a PEA a couple months ago, and we're hoping to release that PEA by mid-year. Mm-hmm. At Bachelor Moroy, we have a smaller deposit there, about 200,000 ounces. And we're currently reviewing, all the technical aspects of the project and the strategy around this project to see how we could bring that deposit into production as well.
Okay, but I guess what I'm intrigued by is you've been in place 3 months now. You've had a look around, trying to work out, what's been going on. Look at the different projects in a bit more detail. So, is it a case of radical change? Is it a case of just tinkering around the edges, or are there some fundamental improvements that you think you can make? Because they brought you in from Wesdome, right? You had great success there. So they must have been looking for a kind of substantive change, because the shares have been sort of, flatlining for about the last 12 months or so, really, right? So people aren't recognizing what the board sees, what you were telling me that you see. So how do you make a sort of step change in the way that things are being done there? Or do you need to do a step change to get the recognition that you think you deserve?
When you look at the Wesdome story, I mean, it was basically starting small and develop the next project and grow. When I say we can repeat the story here, is about our vision. Our vision is a kind of a bootstrap approach. So we want to start small and grow the business. That's how we've done it at Wesdome. This is how we can do it at Bonterra. And I think that is a significant change of the approach, because before, I think the model was to bring the 3 deposits in production at the same time. Now because our projects are at different stages, we think we could bring the Barry deposit into production before the Gladiator. For that aspect, we have initiated the PEA for the Barry open pit operation. We think we could potentially produce about 30,000 ounces a year from the pit at about 1,200 tons a day, 2.4 grams per ton. That will generate some cash flow, and with the money, we would invest it into the Barry underground deposit. The grade is twice higher, so here you go. The 30,000 ounces become 60,000 ounces a year, and eventually, once Gladiator comes in, we could bring the 2 underground deposits in production for over 100,000 ounces a year. So what makes the difference compared to before? I think now we have clarified our vision. We are well aligned with the board of directors. This is what we want to do. We know how. And then, Matthew, it's matter to get the work done. And that's something that I'm quite familiar, to be honest.
Okay, so it's a case, when you say bootstrap, you mean, look, let's not try and do everything all at the same time, sort of deliver everything at the same time. It's a case of we'll prioritize the order of play to feed into the mill. Have you? Sorry, it was an 800 ton per day mill. Sorry, have you got the 2,400 ton per day permit yet? Has that happened?
Yeah, so we are in the permitting process to get to 2,400 tons per day. But when I mentioned bootstrap, we are now looking to do it in phases instead of the one lump sum projects. So instead of costing like $50 million to bring the mill to 2,400 tons, we think with a minimal investment, we can increase the throughput by 50% up to 1,200 tons per day. And when I say minimal, we're talking about $4 to $5 million investment. And we know what we got to do to increase the throughput for that mill. We need to change one of the ball mill. And we already have that ball mill in the yard. So it's, so the intention is to reduce the risk for Bonterra, reduce the amount of capital required for production restart. At the same time, we are looking to increase the capacity of our tailings management area. Again, we're asking a permit to get 8 million tons capacity. But the baggy open pit is only 2 million. So why would we spend all that money upfront? So we're going to do it in phases. It makes sense. It will expedite the production restart for baggy and will limit the amount of investment required from Bonterra, and by the way, reduce the risk for our shareholders.
That's really interesting because we often talk about, the way that Australian miners come at it and the way that North American miners come at it. It's very different styles. The North America seems to want to drill the thing out, get as many ounces as possible, and go big at the end of that process. Where Australia are more known for getting into production earlier with smaller resource size and building up the cash reserves to actually fund future expansion and development. So it's interesting. So has your strategy been done out of necessity because the company has not been able to drive interest in the company? Its the market cap has stayed reasonably flat. I know you've got cash at the moment, but the precious metal market has been for the last 6 months, despite gold price, slow downward trajectory. It seems for most share charts, right? So is this change of thinking because you think, from your experience, it just makes sense to do it? Is that a necessity because raising money in the market is expensive at the moment relative to where you probably think you should be? You raised some money before Christmas, some flow through, and a private placement. What was driving the thinking? Was it we have to react to the market conditions, or no, this was always going to be the best way to do it?
Good question, Matthew. I think what makes Bonterra apart from our competitors or other mining companies is our infrastructures. Do you know one junior exploration company who owns a mill? There's not that many. And I think that is the trigger. That's changed our approach because we do have the infrastructures. They already paid out. They are very well maintained. We think we can bring the mill back into production in 3 months. So as you can see, we don't need, like 5-6 million ounces to finance the construction of a new mill and a new tailings management area. We do have that in hand already. So I think that's what makes us apart. You're talking about the stock performance over the last year. we got 3 million ounces in the book. I think that the question is, what do we do next? When we started Kiena Mine, when we started the production, we basically had 600,000 ounces in the Kiena Deep deposit. And that was enough to restart the mine. So we have about 3 million ounces. To me, it's more than enough, to restart the production. That's where the strategy comes in. How do we get there? What do we do? How do we maximize the value of our deposits? And that's basically what we have putting on as a timeline. If you look at our last corporate presentation, we're putting much more details in our timelines. Where do we see our project going? And it's something that we're going to continue to work this year.
No, it's interesting. I look back to sort of last year, the Rox Gold in West Africa. They started with 400,000 ounces, but they were, averaging, 10 grams per ton. So you're a little bit less than that. What's your average? About 8?
Overall, the Gladiator grade is about 8 grams.
Yeah.
The Baggy deposit is about 5. The underground resource is about 5. So blended probably around 7 grams per ton. Grade.
Yeah, and a mixture of open pit and underground. We've always said, we've written about this. I think to do underground mining in Canada, you need 4 grams and above to kind of make it. There's been too many train wrecks trying to do it under that level. And look, I hear what you're saying with regards to the you've got the mill, the tailings, the assay lab, the Barry camp, Gladiator camp. You've got a lot there for $140 million market company for sure. I was just intrigued as to, was that an easy conversation for you to have to go, look, we've got to change the way, the order of play here. It makes more sense this way. You're saying the board was on. I mean, how quickly did that conversation happen and get decided?
I agree with what you're saying, Matthew. It's a different approach. That approach borders well with my past experience, and I think that's why one of the reasons why I was because I'm the new CEO, because I'm there to execute the vision of the board, and that vision is very clear in my mind, and it's something I can see happening.
Right. You've been really clear. You're saying we are going to get into production as quickly as we possibly can. You've got experience of doing that a number of times. The other part of this is the continued drilling, right? Drilling, again, for what end? You're expanding resource. I guess there's some infill drilling going on there, but you're sitting on a large land package. Is there also going to be exploration drilling?
Yes. So, mining goes fast. You know that, Matthew. One ounce's mined out, you got to find at least 2 more. So that's very important for Bonterra, to continue to define our deposits, but to continue to explore our big land package of over 38,000 hectares. The urban Barry camp, in my mind, it's the birth of a new mining camp. When you consider Bonterra's asset with the Osisko mining asset, the Windfall deposit, within 15 kilometers, there are over 10 million ounces of gold. So think about, when you look at our land package, is there another million or multi-million ounces deposit somewhere? The answer is yes. Where is it? We need to find it. And for that, we need to drill. It's a wetland. It's not that an easy access land package. Most of our exploration, regional exploration drilling is done during the winter when the ground is frozen. So we have limitation, and we need to maximize, the window or the opportunity for exploration. We are looking at the vice president of exploration. Our deposits are complex. They need more drilling. But our geology team needs also better leadership for that aspect. So we are currently looking for a VPX. We just hired a director of geology, very experienced geologist, experienced with narrow vein. So as you can see, we're working on building up the team as well. to bring us to the next stage.
Yeah, no, I saw that, and that's important. Do you need to wait for those hires before you can sort of, get on with the kind of the study process in terms of planning that out, the PEA, or are you just getting on with it?
No, we started the PEA 2 months ago. Again, it's something that I'm very familiar to, the process. We are actually expecting to get the PEA completed by mid-year this year on the Barry open pit. And we believe it's going to be favorable economically. And we would like to proceed right away, upon the approval from the board, to a PFS or a feasibility stage for the Barry open pit. And the reason why we believe that is because the 166,000 ounces in the in-pit resources are mostly in the measured category. So we have a much higher confidence in our resources, and we believe we can convert those resources as reserves.
Okay.
So that is the path of the the technical studies. We are working on the design of an exploration ramp at Gladiator. We are also in the permitting process, so that is ongoing. Getting a permit in Quebec, especially in the James Bay area, takes time. We have to go through several regulators before we can get the permit, and we are hoping to get the permit for Gladiator ramp before the end of this year. So the construction of the ramp will take place next year.
So it's going to be interesting, because if you're going to do this phased approach, which you could sort of almost look at like a sort of like satellite approach to how you kind of build the company out, you're going to create multiple studies for multiple assets, which are going to be at different stages. So that you're sort of creating more work for yourself in a way. You're going to be able to cope.
It is work. But my background is in mining engineering, so that's something that I've done a lot. We have a technical team also working with us. We have consultants. We also recruited a mining engineer to help us on some of the design. So that work has been ongoing for already 2 months, and it's progressing well. So we're certainly looking to update the market as the new information becomes available.
Okay. And so what are we looking at in terms of those kind of moments for the rest of this year? You say you've got cash in the bank, all good. You're talking about doing 7,500 meters of drilling per month. That's great. But what are these other? So that'll be kind of consistent news flow for you with the drilling. But what are the moments? So in terms of the timing around the kind of PEAs and any other studies that you're doing.
If you look at the PEA for the Barry open pit, we believe the PEA will be completed by mid-year, and we believe we can proceed to either a PFS or an FS immediately, and that should take about 6 months. Again, the pit is not. It's a 2 million tons at 2.5 grams per ton. It's a pit shell. We have the infrastructures. We have the mill. It's not that complicated project. So that's why we think we can go past there. The permitting for the mill expansion, that has been going on for years, and we've been making good progresses recently with the second set of questions from the regulator. We are providing answers to those questions at the moment, and we're hoping we'll file all the answers by mid-year this year.
Why is it taking so long? What are they worried about? It's built. It's not like you're building it and they're asking questions. So it's built. Why has it not met their standards to date? What more comfort do they need from you?
Good question. Because of the size of the project, it triggered what we call an impact study, which involved several studies of the environment and the impact. It also involves consultation with the First Nations. And some of the questions, for example, it involves work over multiple seasons sometimes. You have to build your baseline over years. And sometimes when there are information missing, or more detailed ask, you really have to, to cover a couple of seasons, and that takes time, unfortunately. For that instance, at Gladiator, we already started the baseline work there. So we know that eventually we're going to get to a production restart or more advanced project, and that will trigger an impact study. We do know that. We've learned that from the mill expansion. So we already started the baseline work there.
So in terms of like your time and motion study there, you're going, look, we can do 800 ton per day. We want to increase that, ultimately to 2,400, 2,400, but we're happy with an interim stage there. Could you not sort of get going at the 800 level, go through the application process, and then upgrade it later? Is that too costly in terms of staging it like that?
My understanding of the process is when you start, you better to go through the process before to change it. So it's very important for us to continue what we call the COMEX permitting process. So that will happen. That is happening now, and we're hoping to get the COMEX approval by the end of this year.
Okay.
Once we have the authorization from the COMEX, then we will proceed to the provincial regulators. And at that time, we can bring up the phases approach that I talked before, but we are going to talk to the provincial regulators for that.
Okay, so nothing's slowed down. You're saying is that the new process doesn't slow anything down. If anything, it gets us quicker into production, cash flow quicker, re-rate quicker, and less dilution for current shareholders.
Correct.
Okay.
And by the meantime, Matthew, we are working on the detail engineering to bring the mill to 1,200 tons a day, to expand the tailings management area in phases. So we are working on the engineering. So we're basically getting prepared to talk to the provincial regulators early next year. Okay.
And I think someone sent a question in with regards to NSRs on Moroy and Barry Moroy Bachelor. Have you had time to look at those sorts of things, or is that outside of the to-do list for now?
Are you specifically talking to the NSR for our properties?
Yeah.
That's quite interesting, Matthew, because that's what I've been doing last week and actually last weekend.
Yeah.
Just going through our royalties, different royalties and NSR. We actually met some of the prospectors that actually own some of the royalties. For me, I need to sort it out and understand it. What's interesting is some of our NSR we can do a buyback. For example, $500,000 for 1% or those kind of things. So it is something that we are. As we're improving our knowledge, we're going to put an action plan together and see if we could buy back some of the NSR.
Okay.
We do have an NSR with the sandstorm, and there's a big portion of it that can be bought out for a couple of $1 million. So that's quite interesting in terms of the when you look at the economic of the project. And the return of the buyback, it's a no-brainer to me.
And is there a time frame in which you've got to do that? Are you under any time pressure to do those buybacks?
Yeah, from what I read, and again, the pile was about that big, so I'm about halfway done. But the buyback would have to happen before the commercial production.
Okay. So you got time. You got time.
Oh yeah, we do have time.
Okay.
And I got time to sort it out and understand it better.
Yeah, and also I guess you've got better things to do with your money right now in terms of getting towards the point where you can make that decision to get into production. Mm-hmm. Again, another good question that I sent in was around sort of bulk sampling underground at Barry. I thought that was quite, because we've talked about that in the past. So what's your take on that?
When I was performing my technical review of the Barry project, I discovered that the open pit was actually in production for 2 years, in 2008 to 2010, and Methanol, which is the previous owner of the property, produced mined over 600,000 tons of ore and it was all processed at the Bachelor Mill. So in my mind, that's a pretty good, decent bulk sample when you look at it. We do have an underground ramp at Gladiator. They have done some diamond drilling in the past from the underground. We're not drilling from underground at the moment because the ore body can be easily accessible from surface. But it wouldn't take too much, to go back underground and develop the ore. I think where the face of the ramp stop is within 20 meters of the ore. So, but we need to do the things right, Matthew, and it's very important for the Barry underground to get a better understanding of the deposit. We need more drilling. We need to look at where we can gain ounces. It's a 5.5 grams per ton deposit. So we're going to need tons there to make it profitable. We need to improve our understanding for geology perspective, block modeling perspective. And once we have a very high confidence in our model, then it's normally time to test the model. And that's where we could eventually go underground and take a bulk sample underground at Barry.
What's the secret to mining high-grade narrow vein? Because again, the history is littered with people who've not been able to manage the dilution component, and despite wonderful headlines, have struggled to make, in terms of high-grade high-grade numbers, they still haven't been able to make money. So you've done it. You've done it in this district. You've done it in the province of Quebec. What are the things that you need to be careful about? What are the things that you need to have in place? Well, how do you go about planning something like how you attack that?
Very simple. You have to mine quality ore. And to do that, you have to be very selective on what you're going to mine and how you're going to mine it. You got to be very efficient as well. The Barry ore body is hosted in a very competent rock, so I don't think dilution will be a problem there. So it goes with your knowledge of the deposit, the confidence you have in your block model, and the way you mine it. And our approach going to be quality over quantity. So we have to be very selective and mine the best ore available at any time. And that's what we're going to bring to the mill, and that's how we're going to produce a lot of gold.
Right. So I appreciate only being there 3 months, and there's a lot of information you got to absorb and try and understand, and then come up with a plan for it. But can you give us maybe some general statements around what that means, what you've just said? Because being efficient, great. Everyone's got to be efficient in terms of picking the right ore. How do you go about selecting the right ore? What does that look like for you? Because drilling paints a certain picture for you, and whatever, I don't know what your spacing will be on the infill, etc. But I'm really intrigued by how you kind of keep the cost down. Can you do this and retain a kind of low AISC? Do these sorts of projects get done for under $1,000 AISC? $1,000 AISC? Good
question. So you have to understand the deposit at Barry. There's basically two types of lenses. We have the vertical lenses, the vertical component, and we have the shallow, what we call soft dipping. It's the H series. So the vertical lenses are more. We got a bit more thickness there. They're more continuous. So we could easily mine those vertical lenses with a bulk mining approach, which are long hole mining, which is probably one of the cheapest mining method, underground. The shallow dipper narrow vein lenses, the H series, we would have to be more selective to mine those lenses. Basically, two approach. One is, we're talking about 45 degrees. So 45 degrees. So a kind of a modified longo, which you just tip up the footwall a bit to make sure the ore will run in the stope. Or a more selective approach would be a kind of a cut and fill approach, where you basically, it's not bulk mining. You just sail through the ore and then you move to the next cut. If the ore keeps going up, then you mine, as you just follow the ore. So much more selective.
Interesting. No, so I appreciate that. So sometimes it's something we don't talk about, certainly not at this stage. But again, given where you've come from, I guess that's part of the experience that they're looking to you for. Because and I guess it's only PEA stage, but it'll get, which gives us some sense of economics. But you've been through the studies on these kind of high grade narrow veins in the district. I just wondered what your approach was. And I guess just finally, obviously we talk about the tailings available. So what's the size of the tailings available to the mill once it kind of gets its first permits?
So the number we have is about 300,000 tons.
Right. And would you go for that first, or would you get fresh rock?
So what we're working on at the moment is to be able to begin the milling operation. Yeah. At the same time that we'll make the tailings management area bigger. So we're kind of looking at the kind of a hybrid approach, So we have capacity now to put tails, and at the same time, we are going to expand the tailings area, up 2 million tons. That's kind of what we're looking at now. Okay, so more of that later. Well, I'm just kind of conscious of time, Marc-Andre. So I think, thanks for coming on. Stay in touch. I think with you coming on board, it's quite clear the board is signaling that you guys are going to get into production. That's the message to the market. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Definitively, I think the PEA will demonstrate that, and will dictate the next steps, in more detail. So. No, I appreciate that. That's what I'm trying to say is, some companies go through the process. Oh, we'll do a PEA, we may exit. We'll do a PFS, we may exit. We'll go through definitives and we'll hand it over to someone else. Your experience is building mines, getting them into production. So is that a signal to the market? Bonterra is here to build. Yes, I think so.